Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be a review for The Americans Season 2, Episode 5, The Deal. And, oh my god, guys, this episode was amazing. And I knew it would be amazing because when FX has really, really long episodes like this, an hour and 15 minutes, it's going to be a really big episode. And this was by far the best episode of the season. So much shit went down this episode. Very, very intense episode. And I just really, really enjoyed this episode a lot. There's also a lot that happened on this episode, and I actually, what I liked about this episode was Philip had his own plot, and Elizabeth had her own thing to do. Wasn't them doing something together. I thought that was actually pretty cool, the way they're kind of doing this. So, let's just get to this episode, though, because I particularly loved it. I thought it was just a great episode. So basically, it first opens up where we were last week. If you remember, there was a very bad kidnapping that didn't go well at all, and they're now stuck. Phillip and Elizabeth are now stuck with a man that jumped them while they were trying to kidnap Anton. That's what they were trying to do. Anton and his mistress, escaped in their car. So he, is in really bad. It's really bad what happened. So again, they're stranded. So the police are circling the streets because of the shots that were fired. They stop and shine their lights on Elizabeth and Phillip as they try to walk their captive down the street. And they explain to the cops that the man is drunk and they're walking him home. That was a good save because if they didn't say that, they could have been caught. It could have been really, really bad there. So in the meantime, Elizabeth receives a strange phone call from a man claiming that he works at Columbia House Records Club, and he insists that Philip is 3 months behind on his payments. So Philip is tying up the man they kidnapped while they were trying to kidnap Anton, and he doesn't have anything useful to say to him, though, unfortunately. He really doesn't have anything useful to say, which kind of sucks. So there's a woman named Kate who arrives at the building where Philip is holding his captive, and she says she is Claudia's replacement, and he tells her he needs her to find him a new safe house ASAP. Now, the reason that they got a new one is because she basically is telling them they cannot trust Claudia. Claudia is not going to help them. This woman will, and I'm kind of sad. I like Claudia's character, but I understand why they replaced her. Margot Martindale is on The Millers right now, which is doing very, very successful, so that's probably why she was not, I'm thinking she's gonna be back, but I guess we'll have to see what happens there. So Philip is still, he's in the safe house with his captive. And Philip tells the captive that he doesn't have to kill him, and they want Anton, and they could trade him for Anton. And the cops are still circling the safe house. The one safe house. How the cops are there. They're still circling that safe house. And the captive says they needs to use the bathroom. Here comes probably the most disgusting scene of the episode. It was a disgusting scene, but it was also a powerful scene. Philip escorts him. He goes into the bathroom, and Philip refuses to untie the man's hands, and while he basically is forced to wipe the guy's ass for him, the man actually tries to escape, and Philip overpowers him and ties him back up. Now, I knew something very bad was going to happen there. It was a very quiet scene, just a really weird quiet scene. It seemed calm, and I knew something big was going to happen, and that really was pretty big. So yeah, he tried to escape, and he didn't let him escape. Eventually, though, Kate returns, and Philip asks her if she got him a new safe house, and she tells him that he doesn't need a new safe house. And then we get, probably the most interesting scene, of this episode, with Philip, because Philip and his captive, they arrive in an abandoned alley. The Israels, have handed Anton over in exchange for their agent, so that's good there. And Anton tells Philip that he will be of no use to the Soviets in Russia, and they'll be making a mistake sending him. And Philip has him in the car, and you're not really sure how Philip is reacting to this. You're not really seeing a reaction from Philip. Philip just has this blank stare on his face, like... And I think, personally, the reason he has this blank stare is because he knows that what he's doing, he doesn't really want... It's something he has to do. He has no other choice but to do this, basically. So, he begs Philip to let him work for them from the United States. He promises to hand over lasers, infrareds, several other valuable weapons if Philip doesn't send them to Russia. And Philip continues driving and ignores Anton sobbing. And Anton actually calls Philip a monster. That's how far this goes. He calls him a monster. And he says Philip has no feelings and no humanity, and he might as well be dead. And Philip, again, he looks driving unfazed. Was he affected by this? We're not really sure. But eventually, Philip does hand over Anton to 2 KGB members, and they board a ship with him. So that was Philip's plot in the episode. Very effective plot from Philip. I thought it was definitely, really effective from him. And I was really into his plot, where that was going. I was really into it, and I enjoyed it a lot. Definitely really, really great stuff from Philip in this episode. Really powerful scenes as well, especially that scene with Anton. They kind of got you to care for Anton more, and I was just really, really into those scenes. Now let's go to Elizabeth. Elizabeth had her own thing to do in this episode, as I was saying. 2 things Elizabeth is doing. 1, she's still trying to help out Paige. She doesn't know what's going on with her daughter and this Bible obsession. She's trying to stop that, but she's also trying to help out Martha. Because Martha has filled out the application and listed Clark as her husband. Since he didn't answer his phone all night, she assumed he wouldn't mind. Remember, she told him she would do that, and that's what she decided to do. And Elizabeth arrives at home, and Paige is still up in bed, and Paige is still upset that her parents won't let her go to church youth group with her friends. And Elizabeth tells her she doesn't care what she reads, she just doesn't want her hiding things from her. And at the same time, again, I'm thinking you're being a total hypocrite. You're hiding literally everything from your daughter. Every important thing about you, you're hiding from her. So, seriously, all season long, Elizabeth and Philip have been such hypocrites. I really do enjoy it, though, because they don't really realize, that they're being hypocrites. They're just sort of, they don't want them to get exposed and things like that, and they just do a great job of covering things up. But eventually Paige is going to find out, because she was investigating, if you remember. I don't know where that went, but she was investigating. So what happens is Elizabeth receives a strange phone call. I already talked about this, but it claims that Philip is 3 months behind on his payments. So Elizabeth goes to Martha's house. She's dressed as Jennifer, Clark's sister, and Jennifer says that she heard, and Elizabeth says that she heard Martha's messages on Clark's machine, and she felt terrible, so she wanted to let him know that he ditched her too. And she's trying to convince Martha not to list Clark on her application, and she reminds her that Clark isn't allowed to be married to anyone inside the department. And Martha's drunk, bragging about her sex life with Clark to Jennifer, and, who's really Elizabeth. And you can see that Elizabeth is getting kind of jealous of Martha as she's saying this. Kind of funny, actually. She's getting kind of jealous of Martha as she's saying this to her. And Elizabeth is putting drunk Martha to bed and tucking her in. And that was kind of a funny scene, though, with Martha and Elizabeth, because Martha's, talking about how Clark's an animal in bed and things like that. That was definitely pretty funny, because you could definitely see that Elizabeth was very, not really happy about that. So Elizabeth meets up with a Navy sailor, Brad, whom she seduced and convinced that she was a rape victim of. And basically, he did what she asked him to do. He copied all the files on the captain that she and Philip think may have been involved in Ethan and Leanne's murder. And once she has the files, she promptly breaks up with Brad, which was kind of sad. But you can clearly see that, just like last week's episode, you can see that she really doesn't want to do this anymore. And she's gotten the files, so now she has what she has, and they're really close to finding out who actually did this to them. They're very close to that. So then at the end of the episode, Elizabeth is sleeping on the couch waiting for Philip, and she tells him that she spent the evening with Martha, and Clark has some explaining to do. Clearly she's probably upset with him about, his sex life and things like that. She's kind of upset about that. But we don't really know where that's going to go, but I thought it was a cute scene between the two of them until she said that line, and then things started to get really intense. However, the most intense stuff in this episode is actually Stan's plot. Stan and Nina and all of them went got very, very intense in this episode, and I really liked where it went this episode, especially the end of that plot. But let's just get to it. So, Stan receives a phone call alerting him that Anton hasn't returned home, and his wife is very suspicious, and he leaves his wife sketching in her sketchpad, which she claims is soul retrieval, and heads back in the office. Stan is pulling phone records, files on Anton. According to Anton's wife, he makes things disappear like David Copperfield. And Arcady is on the radio trying to broker a deal with the Israels. They have no interest in saving their agent that Phillip kidnapped, but they are actually denying they know what they are talking about. They say, we don't know what you're talking about. And Arcady and Oleg are still bumping heads. Nina is trying to speak to Oleg. Oleg reminds her that he read her file on Stan, and he wants to know, and he knows something suspicious happened to Vlad. He wants to know what is really going on. He does not get an answer to that in this episode. That's the only conversation that Nina and Oleg have. He does not get an answer. But then Nina meets up with Stan, and he asks her if she knows anything about a kidnapped scientist. And she says everyone was behind closed doors, and she has no idea. But she does offer up that Oleg and Arcady were arguing. That she does tell him that. So Stan and his men, and from here, Stan is concentrated on staking out Oleg. Now, I actually thought that he was going to kill Oleg. I thought that's what was going to happen in this episode, was that Stan was going to kill Oleg, and that's what I thought was going to happen, but that's not what happens at all. The complete opposite actually happens, because they're staking out Oleg, and they're following him, and they think that if the Soviets have Anton, Oleg may be careless enough to lead them in. So Stan and his men are still following Oleg. They followed him into the port of Baltimore shipping docks, and Stan drives up to Oleg's car, pulls out his gun, and then Oleg is already waiting for him. And then we get a very big scene between Stan and Oleg. Oleg tells Stan to put the gun away, and he tells him he wants to talk about Nina. And he tells Stan he knows about him and Nina's relationship, and he wants to make a deal. He wants Stan to give him something in exchange for Nina's safety, and then tells him they will talk again and leave. So maybe Oleg and Stan could be sort of negotiating things. And I think, we know what Oleg wants. He wants to know what is Stan's secret. That's what he wants to know. He wants to know what's Stan's secret, what is Nina hiding from him about Stan. And he's definitely going to find out, right here. He wants to know what actually is going on, what happened with Vlad. Because he does not know, that Stan was the person that shot Vlad. He does not know about that yet. I thought he was going to find out in this episode, but he did not find out yet. So I'm thinking in the next episode, he is going to find out. And when he finds out, it is going to get very, very intense. Because he's not going to trust Stan. He's going to think that Stan is killing off all these KGB agents, which he kind of is. He stalks them down, he does what he needs to do with them, and then he basically kills them. That's what Stan does. So I'm thinking that's what Oleg is going to do. He's going to find out that Stan is doing what he's doing with all the KGB agents, and he's going to get really, really pissed off at him. And as a result, it's just going to get really, Oleg might be killed. I'm thinking they're going to kill off Oleg. I thought Oleg was actually going to die in this episode because of, how far this all went. But I loved this episode. Definitely, I loved the episode. There were a lot of amazing scenes in this episode, especially in the Phillip plot with the one guy that they kidnapped. That definitely was a very effective plot. I really enjoyed that a lot. I'm wondering, where that's going to go. What's going to happen with this new woman? Are we going to see Claudia again? What's going to happen there? One very last thing to talk about. Paige did tell Elizabeth that she's not reading the Bible anymore. She's done with that, but it looks like she might not be done with it, so I don't know what's going on there. Also, what's going to happen with Oleg and Stan? Do you think they're going to actually make a deal? Do you think it's going to work out for them? Do you think that possibly Stan might, since Oleg made this deal, do you think Stan might try to, listen to Oleg about this deal? What's going to happen there? What is Clark hiding? What is Elizabeth upset with Phillip? Is she upset about, his sex life with Martha? What's going to happen there? I'm thinking Martha is going to divorce, Clark. I'm thinking that's what's going to happen there. Phillip and Martha, they're going to get a divorce. Because I think that's definitely where they're headed. There was a lot of Martha in this episode, by the way. I really enjoyed a lot of her scenes. Definitely great scenes from her. Just, again, another really fantastic episode. And it looks like next week, something else is going to happen between, I don't know, it just looks like a really intense episode next week, and I'm really looking forward to it. So that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for the Vampire Diaries. So I will see you guys, for that. Okay, Wait, okay. Bye.